This statute became the basis of the First Amendment's protection of religious freedom for all Americans. I was inspired to offer these thoughts by the moving address on anti-Semitism delivered in this chamber by Majority Leader Chuck Schumer a few weeks ago. His powerful comments addressed the fears felt today by so many Jewish Americans, the connection between those fears and the tragic global history of anti-Semitism, and how Americans can come together to reject religious bigotry against Jews. As a person who takes my own Catholic faith seriously, it's important to listen to those who feel discriminated against due to their religion. During our history, Catholics have often been targeted by groups like the Ku Klux Klan. I'm fortunate to say that I've never faced anti-Catholic bigotry, but those who haven't faced religious discrimination need to be sensitive to the real fears of those who face it every day. All of us are God's children, brothers and sisters meant to dwell together in unity. The final part of Senator Schumer's address regarding what we can do as Americans to reject anti-Semitism or any discrimination based on religious beliefs reminded me of the principles embedded in the Virginia Statute for Religious Freedom. And I'm convinced that part of the solution to the rise in anti-Semitism is to go back to first principles and remind ourselves of the values that we have long proclaimed as Americans. The Virginia Statute was first drafted by Thomas Jefferson in 1777. Its purpose was simple and powerful: to declare that a person could freely choose whether and how to worship and would neither be preferred nor punished for that choice. This was at stark odds with prevailing English practice, in which the Church of England was the state-sponsored church, and other Christian sects and non-Christian religions were discouraged, punished, or outlawed. Official discrimination against Jews in English law persisted well into the 18th century, well into the 19th century. And life in the American colonies of England before the Revolutionary War showed the continuation of this preferential treatment for certain religious practices over others. The operative clause of the Virginia Statute is as follows: no man shall be compelled to frequent or support any religious worship, place, or ministry whatsoever, nor shall be enforced, restrained, molested, or burdened in his body or goods, nor shall otherwise suffer on account of his religious opinions or belief, but that all men shall be free to profess and by argument to maintain their opinions in matters of religion, and that the same shall in no way diminish, enlarge, or affect their civil capacities. We complain that things move slowly in the United States Senate. This is not a new complaint about legislative bodies. It took 9 years for the Virginia General Assembly to take up and pass Jefferson's statute. And the state legislative leader who finally gained passage of the measure was James Madison. Madison witnessed discrimination against Baptist ministers in Virginia by those associated with the Church of England. And he believed deeply that religious liberty needed protection. The Virginia General Assembly passed the statute on January 16, 1876, in a building at the corner of 14th and East Carey Streets in downtown Richmond, a few blocks from where I live. Today, that site is a small museum, the First Freedom Center, highlighting the idea of religious freedom and how it became a bedrock principle of American law. Madison was soon charged with drafting the Bill of Rights of the American Constitution. He used the Virginia Statute as the basis for the religious protections of the First Amendment. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. The statute also informed Article 6, Clause 3 of the Constitution: no religious test shall ever be required as a qualification to any office or public trust under the United States. These provisions demonstrate a powerful intent to form an America where all can worship as they please without fear. The meaning of these clauses was well understood at the time. Early in his first term as president, George Washington corresponded with the Jewish community of Newport, Rhode Island. In his beautiful letter from August 1790, he'd been president a little bit over a year, he described an America that was not merely tolerant of religious pluralism, but where all could equally claim the blessings of citizenship. Here's what he wrote. All possess alike liberty of conscience, and immunities of citizenship. It is now no more that toleration is spoken of, as if it was by the indulgence of one class of people that another enjoyed the exercise of their inherent natural rights. For happily, the government of the United States, which gives to bigotry no sanction, to persecution no assistance, requires only that they who live under its protection should demean themselves as good citizens. And he concluded with a wish specifically directed at American Jews. May the children of the stock of Abraham who dwell in this land continue to merit and enjoy the goodwill of the other inhabitants, while everyone shall sit in safety under his own vine and fig tree, and there shall be none to make him afraid. And there shall be none to make him afraid. This is our birthright as Americans. Those of us who take an oath to support and defend the Constitution of the United States have pledged to act in a way to make these words real. We have to guard, protect, and celebrate, not merely tolerate, a society where people of different religious faiths can live in the same neighborhoods, attend the same schools, work side by side, and do so as friends. And when we live up to this promise, it's not only for the benefit of those living here. There are many places in the world where this protection of religious freedom is non-existent, barely possible to even imagine. And yet, if people around the world can see America as a place where people of different faiths live together in respect, equality, and friendship, they can at least believe in that as a possibility for their own societies. We need a recommittal to the first freedom, religious liberty. While comprehensive statistics on religiously motivated harassment are not complete, there is a disturbing spike in anti-Semitism, as well as harassment directed at Muslims or people of Arab descent who are targeted either for religious or ethnic reasons. We've seen Jewish students harassed on campuses in recent months, following upon horrific violence directed against Jews in Charlottesville in 2017 and Pittsburgh in 2018. We've seen the bigotry-fueled murder of a 6-year-old Muslim boy in Illinois and the heartless shooting of 3 Palestinian college students in Burlington, Mr. President, the state you represent, just within the last few months. One troubling form of discrimination is targeting Americans for events occurring elsewhere in the world. In Williamsburg, Virginia, just a few weeks ago, a Jewish group was denied the ability to display a menorah at a local festival because organizers claimed that they didn't, quote, want to make it seem like we were choosing a side, close quote, in the ongoing war in Gaza. American Jews celebrating Hanukkah here should not be blocked from a celebration of the season because of a war thousands of miles away. And Arab and Muslim Americans have long faced fear and discrimination because of the ignorant assumption that the horrific actions of extremists in the Middle East operating on the margins of society somehow reflect the views of an entire faith or community. That we have strong and diverse views about events happening around the world is natural. Events in the Middle East have long caused heartbreak, and the current war in Israel-Gaza is tragic. But events elsewhere give no cause for bigotry or violence against fellow Americans. Organizations monitoring hate crimes have seen significant spikes in attacks on American Jews and American Muslims and Arabs since the Hamas attack on Israel on October 7. At the very time when we should be showing the world that there is a different way, that religious pluralism can actually work. We're seeing tears in the social fabric that we have worked so hard for so long to stitch together. While religious bigotry can affect any group, recent statistics indicate that the most frequent targets in America today are Jews. Jews make up only 2.4% of the American population, but statistics in recent years have shown that the overwhelming majority of hate crimes committed out of religious animus, nearly 60%, are driven by anti-Semitism. Instances of anti-Semitism between October 7 and January 7 increased by 360% over the same period a year ago. We also see rising anti-Semitism around the world, and increasing anti-Semitism is often an early warning sign of the fragility of a democracy. My conversations in recent months with Jewish friends and acquaintances have been saddening. Some are worried about their own safety and, more painfully, the safety of their children and grandchildren. Some even wonder whether they might need to leave this country one day, just as Jews have been forced out of many other countries over time due to bigotry. One expressed to me the powerful feeling of wanting to belong to the American family, to be truly welcomed and safe after a history of global anti-Semitism, but now feeling pushed aside. He recounted standing up for so many excluded groups over the course of his life, but sadly wondered why more are not standing up for Jews now. Another friend recounted growing up in a mixed household with a Jewish father who would often say, "The world has always hated Jews, and you think you're accepted here? You'll learn different one day." She told me that she and her siblings would roll their eyes at their dad when he would say this when they were kids. Now, she says, "For the first time in my life, I begin to understand what he meant." A third friend told me something that really shocked me. Some family members are deciding to remove the mezuzahs placed at the doors of their homes. A mezuzah is a small cylinder with the sacred Hebrew text inside, placed on the door of a home and sometimes on interior doors as well, to provide a blessing and protection to those within. My friend told me that it's an obvious, perhaps too obvious, sign that it's a Jewish household. And so while this tradition dates back centuries, people are tempted to avoid it just out of fear that the presence of a mezuzah may lead them to be targeted for discrimination. I researched this a bit and found that my friend's fear was well-founded. There are many examples of people facing harassment or having their homes vandalized merely because of their mezuzah. In 2022, for example, Jewish students at the University of Indiana found that their mezuzahs were being stolen or defaced. This instance followed others on or near the campus in which swastikas and other anti-Semitic phrases appeared. Senator Schumer laid out the prevalence of anti-Semitism throughout global history. We've never been immune from it here, even as we profess the freedom of each person to worship as they choose. So how should we deal with this blight on our values and recommit to respecting the religious beliefs of each person? First, let's take pride in our tradition of religious freedom and celebrate it today and every day. It's made our society rich in faith traditions. By being authentically who we are, we can educate each other about religious beliefs and grow deeper in our own spiritual understanding. I'm a better Christian because of things that I've learned from friends who are Jewish, Muslim, Hindu, Buddhist, Sikh, Jain, and from those who have deep ethical and spiritual grounding, though not expressed as religious faith at all. And I hope that living my own Christianity may have a positive influence on others' spiritual beliefs as well. Second, let's get better at tracking hate crimes and other forms of discrimination committed on the basis of religion. We passed the Khalid Jabbar and Heather Heyer No Hate Act. Heather Heyer was the very, very remarkable young woman who was killed by neo-Nazis in Charlottesville in August of 27. I was proud to co-sponsor that bill. We passed it in 2021 to provide training and implementation grants to help law enforcement agencies report and respond to hate crimes. This will solve gaps in reporting 80% of law enforcement agencies participating in national crimes databases reported no hate crimes between 1996 and 2020. This is likely a serious underreporting problem rather than indication that hate crimes don't happen. Better measurement alone will not solve the problem, but the failure to accurately measure religious discrimination renders improvement very difficult. Third, let's commit to increasing education about religious discrimination throughout our history and the reasons why America embraced the guarantee of religious freedom as our nation was founded. I'm gratified, for example, that Virginia has made education about the Holocaust an important part of our social studies curriculum. In a recent hearing on anti-Semitism before the HELP Committee, a key fact that emerged was just how poorly informed many are about this topic. And the plethora of misinformation spread by irresponsible social media platforms makes the need for better education even more urgent. If we just count on the criminal justice system to deal with this topic, we will never be successful. We need to inculcate a curiosity about spirituality and a love for religious pluralism in our young people. This is not about indoctrination, it's about respect. Fourth, let's embrace a whole-of-government response to anti-Semitism by working to implement the recommendations contained in the U.S. National Strategy to Counter Anti-Semitism announced by the Biden administration in June 2023. This comprehensive approach is built around four key pillars: education, safety, fighting the normalization of anti-Semitic words and actions, and building solidarity. It can be a model for similar work at the state and local levels. We can do more in Congress and in communities across America to make this strategy visible and meaningful. Finally, there are acts that we can each take as individuals to show we respect the religious beliefs of all. There have been powerful examples throughout history of actions of solidarity against anti-Semitism. I'm pleased to partner with my Republican colleague, Senator Bill Hagerty of Tennessee, to recognize forgotten heroes of the Holocaust with the Congressional Gold Medal. These were diplomats from over 24 countries who took grave personal risks to help Jews escape Nazi-occupied Europe. Their actions show us the power of an individual to be a light in the darkness, to say, I'm not Jewish, but I see what's happening to Jews, and I will do what I can to help. When students at the University of Indiana confronted anti-Semitism on campus in 2022, they came up with a novel solution. Noting that the desecration of mezuzahs made Jewish students afraid to display them, a campus organization produced and then distributed mezuzahs across the campus to Jewish students and non-Jewish students alike. They reasoned that a massive display of mezuzahs on the community's doors would send a message of solidarity and render it less likely that a Jewish student would fear being targeted for bigotry. I will follow the creative idea of the Indiana students by installing a mezuzah at the entrance to my home. I want to send a message to Jews and all people that they will always be welcome. I won't put a Hebrew scripture inside the mezuzah because I don't feel that as a Catholic I should appropriate that particular religious tradition. But I will put these words on a small message inside: none shall be afraid. Echoing the letter George Washington wrote more than 230 years ago, that message applies not just to American Jews, but to all who seek to live in harmony with others of diverse spiritual views. I encourage others to follow the inspiration of these young people. Find a mezuzah at a local synagogue or Judaica shop and install it on the door of your home. Place within it a message of hope and acceptance, Washington's words or the First Amendment or another message meaningful to you. Or take other steps to demonstrate that you celebrate our religious freedom and offer welcome to all. Stand together with those of all spiritual traditions against forces that would divide or harm us. And by doing so, let's move closer to the ideal that America professed at our founding.